Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you visiting out what we're doing today. If you are new here and visiting our channel for the first time, this is something I do with my husband Chris. We take thrift store found items and we give them new life. And here on our channel we share our vision of what we do to these items to get them ready to resell, and we resell them here locally at a local antique mall. So in today's video, these are some thrift store found items. There's kind of some storage containers. When I'm doing the videos, I like to group things similar to give you lots of different ideas. So in today's video, I'm going to be using some tissue paper and some stamping, and then using some decor transfers. So super excited to share with you the process. But not only do I share the process of how I use those to add to decor, I show you how I fix things up and how I make them ready to accept the transfers in the tissue paper that has been stamped. So follow along with me as I share with you my process. So do you all see items like this when you're in a thrift store? Picnic baskets, little storage baskets. I don't actually run across them too awful much, but they actually do sell really well when I paint them up. So this is part of my this picnic basket. I actually wish now that I would have picked up more when I was at the indoor flea market in the Elkhart area. Yep, my hands always have spray paint on them. I'm constantly working on something and waiting for something to dry. And I had thrifted this little piece a while ago. It's just now time to get it done. When I have like items, I group items together that are similar. Any place that you can have a lid, you have a little bit of storage and some decor, and yep, it's got a little bit of problems. And then this one caught my eye because it was already white, but for me, I see the problem because the inside has drips and runs, and yeah, that could have been something that detracted somebody from buying it. Now, I had just run across these very faded nesting boxes. Oh my gosh, I just absolutely love the size of them. I told myself I wasn't going to do any more of these, but the size of these, especially for this price, for the $609 price tag, I'm like, okay, yep, I'm going to be doing these today also. And though I forgot to take a before picture, I'm like, oh, I quickly had to stage these in my house before taking a before picture of these two suitcases that I actually had in my decor for quite a while. I just had never been inspired on what to do with them. So I know I need to fix the bottom of this, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. It's going to make it easier to paint, but I am going to go in and remove all these little nails that were supposedly holding this together. And yep, I'm going to be removing all of the price tags too. Now, I can't say cleaning items like this is very easy. You don't want to overly wet them, but they definitely do need to get cleaned off. So I'm just taking some Superclean and some hot water and just doing the best as I can to get in between all these spaces, all that dust. Of course, they've been sitting around the workshop, and then anything that would prevent my paint from sticking. So my experience with painting this type of a picnic basket is that my end result is going to be white, and I know that it's going to discolor my white paint. So I'm going to go right in, right from the get-go, and put a couple coats of shellac. This is going to prevent that bleed through from happening at the end. But for the rest of these items, I can start right off using that Rust-Oleum paint and primer and the flat black. Now, what this is going to do is going to cover up all this color that's left on these nesting boxes, and it's going to give me a good base coat. When it comes to spray painting items, I find that if I do that black underneath, it doesn't take me as many coats of the white to cover. I find when it comes to baskets like this, or baskets in general, or picnic baskets, that spray painting is the easiest way. It's just so hard to use a brush without getting drips and runs. For me anyway, maybe you don't have that problem, but to get that smoothest coverage, not get it to glop up, not to get it to roll, especially I like to spray paint pieces like this. Now, since this basket is already painted white, that the outside is in pretty good shape. It's the inside that's a little bit of the problem for me with those drips and runs. So I'm just using that same type of paint, that Rust-Oleum paint and primer, but I'm using the flat white. So I'm just going to go in, and hopefully that this will blend all those drips and runs that you can see from the inside. That's why I always say, especially as a reseller, that every area of your product matters. The inside, the outside, the backside, the whole thing. The people are buying the whole package. So I applied 2 coats of that shellac to every pieces and parts of this picnic basket, so I don't have to worry about my white paint bleeding. And I'm not going to be painting this one black because I'm not going to be distressing this piece. I think that I'm going to get a couple coats of coverage with just the white paint, with spraying that shellac on there first. And I'm struggling with my paint can here. Oh, sometimes the struggles are real. I do more of the chalk paint sprayer, but I don't want to distress these pieces, and I want them not to have to worry about trying to seal that in just for the resale value of these. That's why I'm going for the spray can. But for some reason this season, the white, I've really had a lot of problems with having some dead cans. So I just wondered if anybody this summer has run across turntables. Oh my gosh, it just makes it so easy to be able to spray your piece, even if you don't have a spray room like we do, just being able to take it outside and spraying the piece and have it on a turntable. Yeah, did you see I finally switched over to my handle to see if that would help the spray can that I'm struggling with. But have you all picked up a turntable yet to use in your painting of items? So even though I'm not going to be distressing these pieces, just to make sure that that black paint is good and on there, that for some reason the white doesn't gray, I'm not sure if it was. I guess I'm a creature of habit. I'm just going to go in and give them a clear coat just to make sure that that black sealed in. So now that I've got 2 coats of spray inside that box, now I'm going to go outside and just try to flip-flop, get all those little angles. That is the one important thing when it comes to basket, is making sure that whatever angle you're catching in your eye with these baskets, that it is covered in the white. So I'm not sure if the handle's helping, but for some reason it does seem to be spraying better. Now, even though the outside of this was painted white, I'm going to go over and give it a fresh coat of the white that I've used in the inside. And as I'm turning this, oh, did you notice? No, they didn't get that bottom either. So good thing that my OCD perfectionist problem kicks in, of wanting to make sure the entire piece has been done. Sometimes I think if I could paint everything black, I would, because it's usually a 1-coat coverage. Oh, anyway, so I'm going on, and when it comes to spray painting baskets, there's a lot of turns and angles that you want to get. So what I do is I just go in and just do the best coat I can in the first, and then I will flip it, flop it, and turn it this way, turn it that way, to make sure that I'm getting all the pieces and parts. But the nice thing that I painted that black underneath, I've covered up that original color. So if you see a shadow underneath, it's the black that you're seeing. So here's everything with at least 1 coat of the white paint on there, and you can definitely tell that it's going to need at least 1, if not 2 more coats. So here are those angles I was talking about. So as I'm doing the bottom, I can see up from underneath where the spray paint, of course it was only coming in the downward, that I can get another angle to get some more spray paint in the middle of all that weaving. Now I want to make sure that this bottom doesn't come off again. So I'm going in with some Star Bond glue and I'm putting a nice little bead around, and where I'm going is that inside pocket. That bottom actually doesn't fit that whole entire bottom, so just that inside piece of reed is where I'm putting the Star Bond glue. And then after getting that bottom replaced, I wanted to call it a lid, but it's the bottom. I'm just going to take the accelerator that's going to dry that in 15 seconds. Now, I may not be getting completely underneath, but it's going to hold that tight as I'm actually going to use the same holes, but the little nails that I'm using are a little bit bigger of the holes, so hopefully it's going to be a much tighter, secure fit now. So now I've got some blank canvases to work with, so let's see what kind of details I can put on these pieces to make people want to buy these in my booth. And as you see, these are good size boxes. So my idea, the animal stamps, those IOD animal stamps sell really well. And I was blessed to be giving this set of stamps that have the perfect, for me, the perfect little wreath that will accent these animals. And so I'm going to be stamping on some tissue paper that I'm going to be Mod Podging on the front of these boxes. So now I just have to go through and figure out which animal is going to fit on which one of the boxes. Now, to protect my box, I put a towel underneath it so it doesn't accidentally get scraped up, or if there's anything, I just painted it and I didn't want to distress the piece, so I want to keep it nice and clean. So in this stamp set, it actually has two different of these little leaf accents. So I'm just playing here a little bit, trying to figure out the placement, which ones looks the best with these animals. I'm not going to be adding any words to these, but this has a nice size to fill. So I decided that those were much too small for this big cow. So I'm going to go ahead and do this leaf wreaths. I just absolutely love this, and I still thank Melissa a lot for sending these to me. What a thoughtful gift for somebody to think of. But I absolutely just love the simplicity. It's a cow. I don't need to write it. There's not enough room for any more wording, and this is just will be what it'll be. Now, for me, when I'm working on a project, unfortunately, I'm not that free for just go for it kind of person. I have to have an idea. I have to have them all kind of laid out. I have to have my game plan to know which animal fits. I would hate to have gotten through and figured out, oh my gosh, the sheep doesn't fit. I don't really want to do the rabbit because it is a farm animal, but it's not a farm animal. And I knew that the chicken was going to be much too big. So I just thought I would share my thought process with you all. We all think of things in a different way of how to do things. So I've got it centered out where I want it on my flexible stamping mount. I do use double stick tape. I have some trust issues of my stamps falling off. I use them on all of them now. So I'm just going in with some StazOn ink and making sure that I get all my stamps nice and inked up. So I just buy my tissue paper, my white tissue paper at the Dollar Tree store. Hey, you gotta love that. And so now I love doing it on tissue paper. That way, if your image doesn't turn out, you can do another image. And I've been testing out this technique of how to make sure that I'm getting all the little pieces and parts of the stamp's image transferred onto the paper. And just by chance, I was using this for another project on my transfer tape doing some vinyl, and I came across hey, I bet you that will work. And I have to say, oh my gosh, it transfers the image wonderfully. But see, look, even though I used the double stick tape, it still came off. But, at least it stayed on while I was transferring the image onto the tissue paper. And I absolutely look at how well I was able to get all those pieces and parts of this image transferred. Now I just need to go in and do my other two animals. And I think the reason that it really sticks to that transfer tape or to the tissue paper and pulls off and stays behind is because I'm really pushing hard, making sure that my image is nice and clear and getting it to transfer onto that tissue paper. Because as you tell, when I'm taking it off the tissue paper, that stamp is really on there. This grid pattern on this flexible mount is so nice because you can go in and you can use a ruler and you can make sure that you're all leveled, you're all centered. So that they're like $2-3 on different websites. They're only sold by I've only found them on like the IOD places that sell them. I don't have an Amazon link. I've gotten one from the Birds Gotta Fly Vintage. I can link that for you to help you all out, and you can check out their IOD stamps that they have. So when I'm centering these little wreaths, leaves, I'm not only centering it from the bottom and the top, but I'm also measuring from the object to see the spacing from the object also, and making sure that I kind of have the same tip, you know, where it's upright, kind of off to the side a little bit. Yet again, it's still that perfectly imperfect of doing crafts, doing DIYs. When you're coming into our areas as crafters, you know it is a handmade item. Now, to cut around the images to get them off of this tissue paper to be able to glue them onto our boxes, all I'm going to be doing is just taking a little paintbrush, a little head paintbrush, and just some water. And then I'm just going to try to eyeball a nice line, giving myself enough area that after I get the circle all done, that I can go back in and just gingerly rip the two pieces apart. You don't want to do it so close to your image that you accidentally rip your image, but this was a technique that you all shared with me, and it is just a blessing. Where has this been all my life? So if you notice while I'm doing these boxes, I'm leaving the lids on. That way I don't accidentally glue up too high and that my image is covered by the lid. So just sharing that little tip with you all. Yep, I'm sharing my mistakes that I've done with you all. So now what I'm doing is I'm just folding the image over. I got it centered where I want it to be. Sometimes I'll use like lint rollers to hold my image so it doesn't rock, but because these are more of an oval, I'm able to hold on it and keep it centered. So I just put that Mod Podge halfway down underneath and then gingerly work out the tissue paper so I can make sure that I don't have any air pockets, and then it's getting glued down. And then I'll do the exact same thing to the other side. I'll just flip it over, hold it over, and then I like these the same paintbrushes that I use for using on the chalk paint that I get at that Walmart section, and I share an Amazon link. They are perfect for putting the Mod Podge on because it's washable. I can just take them over to the sink and reuse them. So I've kind of got rid of doing the foam ones as much because they actually tend to dry out on me sometimes when I'm in the process. So these have been working out really well when I'm applying Mod Podge. So after I get that all Mod Podge down, I will go over the front of the piece also with the Mod Podge to make sure that all those edges and all those pieces of parts are nice and secured down. And then I go around my edges to make sure that there's not an excess of the Mod Podge laying around. And then I kind of do a dabbing technique just to make sure that it's just nice and just flowing and that it's all adhered. And yeah, I'll lift the box just a little bit to make sure that I'm not gluing that lid on. And as I work on gluing all these on, I double check my placement to make sure when I have all three on top of each other that there's the flow of them all being centered. So I'm going to be using the stamping technique on these two where I stamp on that tissue paper yet again. It just makes it so you can add detail to these uneven surfaces. So when I'm trying to decide, coming up with the ideas, always the hardest part of I'm collecting quite the supply of stamps, but birds do really well in my area. I picked this stamp set up at my trip to Birds Gotta Fly Vintage, so I'm like, I really love this flying bird. I love those little soft leaves. I think this is just the perfect accent for this little basket. So I'm getting that placed where I need it to be. I'm centering it. I'm using that grid line. That blue line is the center line. That way I know where to stick my image back on. So I get the stamp set put down where I want it to be and then grab it up with that stamping mounted before getting it all inked up to transfer it onto the tissue paper. and pretty much everything is the same. I transfer it onto the tissue paper. I cut it out using that water and ripping technique. Now, if you're questioning the uneven surface, I've done uneven surface putting the tissue paper on, and it's fine, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that recentered on. I'm going to work from my center point out. That way I can gingerly go through that raised and low areas when I'm Mod Podging it down. Since this lid keeps opening up on me and it's getting in my way, I'm just going to use a couple pieces of masking tape and say, hey, stay closed there so I can work on the front of you. So I couldn't help myself. I did a similar basket using these animals, the Tim Holtz animal stamp set, my favorite stamp set. And it's not enough space to really fill the space up. So I'm going to go ahead and just do old farmhouse. I still live in a rural area community, a lot of farming going on around our area, so it sells really well. And then I have this random stamp set that I found at Goodwill. I don't even know how to link it because I don't know who made it, but I absolutely love the size of these little letters. So it's the same thing. Once I get it all centered where I want it to be, I've measured out, my animals, my letters, everything is achievable. I'm going to go with that flexible stamping mount and grab them up. And yep, my Tim Holtz stamp set I had well loved also, so I have some double stick tape on those animals. And so when I get it moved to this grid, I'm going to have to move those letters down and make sure that they are nice and level. I've learned with these letters, I had a previous project that I had some stamping go bad, that these letters I need to go with the bottom of the letter and not the bottom of the stamp to make sure that they're in line. And the same thing, I'm going to be using that StazOn ink to get them all inked up, then flip it over, get it onto that tissue paper. As you can see, I'm still reusing the same piece of Dollar Tree tissue paper, very cost efficient. And then rubbing it with that scraping tool, my Cricut scraping tool. I'm sure you can use whatever kind of scraping tool, just something to help get all those little pieces and parts of these beautiful stamps transferred onto what you are trying to get the image onto. So to go back and reuse that O, I'm just going to place it where it needs to be. I'm going to go get some clear Scotch tape. That way I can see through the tape. I'm going to grab that little O, and then I'm going to take it over to the ink pen, get it ink up, try not to get the ink onto the tape, and that way it's just a little bit easier to handle for me, that I can place it where it needs to be, and I can center it with that clear tape and then push it down with my finger. So now I just need to recenter it. When I'm centering on this one, I really want to make sure it may not be completely up or down from the bottom. I just want to see where my placement of my wording is, that you're going to be able to see it clearly. So the same thing, I started in the middle, put the Mod Podge down, and the same exact process I've done for the other tissue papers. So I thought at first I was just going to leave this white picnic basket just white. I've sold them just white, but I couldn't help myself. A couple weekends ago, I had stopped back into the Bayberry House in Marshall, Michigan. They were having a vintage fair going on, and oh, did I ever want a video for it, you all. It was the cutest little thing I'd ever seen. Oh, just some talented people, but unfortunately there was too many people to be able to video, so I actually ended up buying a couple more of their IOD stamps that they still have on sale. And so I thought, oh, I'm loving those little wreaths, and I just thought, what a perfect addition to make a little farmhouse cottage core picnic basket. So I picked out, this is actually a transfer, so we're going to be seeing how I've never done a transfer on an uneven surface, so I thought this is the perfect opportunity to test it out. So I've got it centered, I'm taping it down to hold that tape down, and yep, I'm just going for it using the rubbing tool. Yeah, so let's see how this goes. Now, some of the spots, it's just easier for me to go in with my fingernail because that image is all one image on those papers. But look at that. It definitely worked. Just making sure that they're all down. So to add a little bit more detail to this, I'm going to throw some grain sack striping on there. Okay, well, not throw, paint some grain sack striping. So my first was like, okay, I'm going to center it with the handles. But as I started to tape off the original hinges on the back, I was like, something's not quite right. The hinges actually were not put on there completely. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to nix that idea. That's throwing me off way too much, and I'm not fixing hinges after I already got it painted. So I guess I'm just going to go to the outside to find my space right outside that little rounded edges, and I'll measure from there and see how that goes. So I'm actually going to go in and I'm using that 1/2 inch tape in the middle of the grain sack stripe. So what you do is you put that first piece down, then you butt up what your painting stripe is going to be, and I'm using that 1/2 inch tape, and then I'm taking another piece of a Dollar Tree regular size masking tape and then putting that button up against that, and then you remove the middle tape, and that's where your painted stripe is going to be. Now I have 2 different grays, luckily, and I have a darker gray and a lighter gray, and my darker gray actually match this transfer perfectly. Though I have some of these Dollar Tree sponges, makeup sponges that I've always used for stenciling, but they're really, really spongy, so they're not really absorbing the paint in. I don't know, maybe I have to think of something differently, or it's just the batch that I've gotten. So it's going to take about 3 coats to cover to achieve that dark of the gray that I want, so I don't see those pounces. I've never had a problem with actually seeing the pounces of tapping it up and down when I'm doing this dry technique, but hey, things happen, products change. So I will dry in between coats until I achieve the gray that matches that front transfer. And then I like to use the blow dryer to help release that sticky of the masking tape, so hopefully that I'm not pulling any of that white paint off. So now for spacing, I decided that I'm just going to do 2 simple the 1/2 inch tape lines. So I ended up having to remove that the inch tape that came from the Dollar Tree, butted up against my tape line, a piece of the 1/2 inch tape, put another piece of 1/2 inch tape, and then butted that up against and removed that center tape because that's where my second stripe, that way I have it even going across. Now I need to seal my tissue paper stencils in, and my transfer needs to be sealed in, so I'm just using some of this Rust-Oleum clear coat and matte and just lightly spraying it on those images. I don't need to do the entire box. I just want to make sure that my transfers, my stencils, my tissue paper is good and on there. So if I did not forget the suitcases, guys, if you're wondering where the suitcases were, here they are. So this is what they look like. They are not, I'm not really sure what they were used for. I paid a $3.09 at my local Goodwill for these back in the day. I've had these for quite a while, but they are a paper material. So I've never really wanted to paint them. I like them that they're black, but you can see that they were all scraped up. So sometimes I was using them in my decor, trying to figure out what to do with them one day. And then when I was touring Birds Gotta Fly Vintage, I spied some of their IOD transfers that they had done on their suitcases and thought, oh my gosh, I have some in my hoard that would be perfect for these suitcases. So I'd actually purchased this redesign transfer from scrapbook.com for a while ago. I had done one of the original laundry coat on a cedar chest that we had painted black. Love that. Sold it. It sold fast. But I had these left over 2 pieces. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder if they will fit on the front of these black suitcases. Just the perfect coordinated colors. The hardware on the suitcases are that brass goldy. So let's hope that these fit. So what do you think, guys? I think that this one, I think I can make this work. I think it's almost a perfect fit. Now this one, because that top is a little bit, you're kind of losing a little bit of the top wording, but maybe I can rearrange it to make it fit. So transfers are a lot of fun. Don't think that they are easy though. Don't think the rubbing time, it's almost like cutting out your image on your Cricut, but it is well worth it. But so now I'm just going to try to make sure that it's centered before like pushing on it down. I didn't really have a thought that it would stick quickly like a glass or a porcelain ceramic item would grab it quickly, because that is sticky. Now I did have a little bit of problems here when I touched some metal, but not on this piece, so I just wanted to share that with you all. But yep, just making sure there's a seam where you can see those little rivets, making sure that that is centered in between there. After getting it centered to what I feel is a pleasing to my eye, I'm just going to go through and hand rub it on. And then Redesign actually sells these rubbing tools, so I'm going to go over very gingerly, making sure that I'm not creasing up. That top transfer tape is very thick, so I just want to make sure that I'm adhere, that I'm not going to shift when I start really rubbing to transfer that image. Okay, now I've committed, so now I have to start rubbing that transfer on, and I'm going to start that whole image, that whole wording, everything is attached, so it's not like you can go in and just do one of the letters at a time. You got to go, when you're doing it, you got to do the whole image. So I'm going to start right off at where it overlaps that corner. I'm not terribly worried about that overlapping. It was the main head title that I wanted to make sure was seen. So yep, so once you get that started, you can start pulling up on that transfer tape, and that definitely helps it go a little bit faster. You can tell where you need to rub a little bit more. You don't want to go fast, you don't want to tear it up fast, because you'll rip your image, and yeah, it's not fixable usually. Been there, done that. I'll share all my sorrows with you. So yep, just going in there gingerly, figuring out which tool helps me achieve the rub to get that transferred a little bit better. Some of those little pieces I need the littler stick that it comes with, and some of the bigger pieces I can go in with this Redesign tool. But yep, just take some time, just keep on rubbing. And then holding that transfer tape, yeah, you could cut it off, but I find that being able to hold it up and pulling it up, I can definitely tell where I need to rub a little bit more. Okay, so let's tackle this next transfer. So what am I going to do? I know that the title, the main focus, that first sentence is not the right size. Do I go sideways like this, kind of at a tilt, but then I cut off a lot of the other? Oh, sometimes the struggles are real, but you just have to play around till you can figure out what is pleasing to your eye and what you think looks the best. And if the buyer buys both of these, I don't know if I want it to be at an angle. Okay, so I made my decision. I'm just cutting that top wording off. So nope, I don't speak French. I don't really know what it says. I think something about a library. I tried to Google it to see what the definition is, but it just kept taking me to a library and book theory. So yeah, yet again, I'm with other YouTubers that like, it's just pretty decor piece. So there's just something about a different language, especially here in America. So anyway, so I cut off that those top letters. I think I have enough to put one on top of the other, that there's enough spacing for this whole thing to go. That way I don't have to cut up those main letters. Okay, so now I've got them cut apart. I got them into single words. Now I'm going to try to see where my center point is to make sure that before I start to just adhere it a little bit, that it is centered before getting that sticky down. Because if you get the sticky down, it's starting to transfer already and you can't really pull it back up. Okay, I think I am centered. I think I have where I want the transfer to be. And now I just get to go to town and start rubbing. Yep, you got to be careful at the end, especially since I cut that off. Did you see it pull up a little bit? So, ooh, okay, so I'm going to start off at this end and work the other way over so I don't mess that up again. But yep, hey, you're just trying to rub that. It depending on what you're rubbing it on, it just depends on how hard it and easy it comes off. So I don't I feel as if this isn't too terribly bad. I've had some of the black ones that I was putting on windows and I really felt like I had to rub all day long. Probably just depends on the transfer itself and what the item is that you're transferring it on. So I won't make you watch the whole process, but I just wanted to share how I centered this with you. Did you see I accidentally ripped that little piece off and then going back in and trying to add it in? And then when it goes to the sides that are going down the side of the suitcase, I'm going to work on those first. And you really need to have your starting point, I feel, and then work up from there. So I'm getting those transferred over first, making sure, especially in the crease, that they're transferred before going over to that flat area on top. And again, I find it's easier for me to roll it. That way I have, or hold on to the excess so I have something to grab onto to lift that transfer paper up as I'm finishing up this. That way, especially as I want to make sure that it's nice and flat before going to the curve and going over to the side. Now to seal in these transfers do need to be sealed in somehow, is the recommendation. Clear coat, wax, and somehow. So this is perfect. I did this on that cedar chest that I had done. These suitcases have a little bit of wear, a little bit of fading. We got some scratches going on. The transfers themselves has that little rim around it that you can kind of see. But once I use this Waverly antiquing wax, yep, just antiquing wax straight on, rubbing it on, it just soaks right into this paper of the suitcase. And oh my goodness, is it just taking this to another level. It's just bringing back to life, that suitcase into, and just making that wording look like it's always been there. Now here's a side-by-side of the first suitcase I did and the second one that's waiting to be done. Just look how it just took this to another level. It richens that up. It makes those marks look a little bit more cleaner. And so yes, when I'm doing this entire piece, I'm not just doing the front. I'm doing the sides, the underneath, the back. I need to richen up that whole black on this whole entire suitcase. So what did you guys all think about stamping on that tissue paper and rubbing it with that scraper, my Cricut scraper? Oh my gosh, that is the best image I've ever gotten. I just have to share that with you. Ever. Any stamping I've ever done, even when I was card making and scrapbooking, that is the best image I've ever transferred over to any kind of paper. So I hope that you guys give it a try and it works as good for you as it did for me. And oh my gosh, just those decor transfers on those suitcases and being able to do it on that picnic basket. I don't know, y'all. I loved every single one of these projects I did, but then again, I pretty much love every single item we flip. So anyway, so I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I hope I have inspired you in any way to look at thrift store found items, to try a couple different techniques. So thank you so much for watching today's videos, guys. And if you like this kind of content and you're not already part of our YouTube family, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when I've uploaded a new video. And we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.